Hi, welcome to Harvard Business Review's The New World of Work. I'm Adi Ignatius, Editor-in-Chief of HBR, and thank you for being with us. We are pre-taping this show for scheduling reasons. So as you're watching this live, we won't be able to take questions from the audience, but we did get some questions for our guests, who I'll introduce in a second, from our Instagram followers beforehand. So anyway, glad you're with us. This is, like I say, it's taped, not live, but this will be a great interview. We have a great guest who I will introduce in 1 second. But first, let's hear from our friends at Unisys.
When you think about how the cloud can help your business, are you thinking big enough? We can help you drive more value from the cloud. We're Unisys, and we do cloud really well.
All right, so this is our last show of the season. So New World of Work, we've been going, I guess, for 12 episodes, and we're going to take a break after this episode, and then probably come back in the fall, but you'll be hearing more from us later. But we have a great guest today, and that is Shear, who is the CEO of Twitch, who most of you know is the fast-growing streaming service for gaming, for sports, for entertainment, that was purchased for nearly $1 billion 8 years ago by Amazon. Emmett is also a part-time partner for the startup accelerator Y Combinator. So Emmett, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, I really want to talk to you about Twitch, how Twitch sort of represents the evolution of the economy. I want to get into all that in a second. But before we start, I think it would be odd not to talk about the tragedy in Buffalo, the murder spree, the perpetrator, was initially trying to live stream on Twitch, and that has brought out criticism that comes up from time to time about whether platforms are responsible for the content that's on them. So, before we get into it, I'd love to give you a chance just to address that and what your thoughts are on all that.
Yeah, it's, obviously a horrific hate crime, and that kind of violence, that kind of hate, white supremacy, racism, don't have any place, really anywhere in our society, or especially on Twitch. And we're working, of course, with law enforcement and taking every action we can find to respond to the tragedy. And we're going to continue to invest heavily in ensuring the safety of everyone on Twitch. I think this is an example of one of those places where we've done a lot of work, but there's obviously still work to be done.
All right, Emmett, well, I appreciate your addressing that, and obviously this is a tough time for all of us. But let's get into it, and really in some of your comments right there, it points to the fact the world is changing, and there are platforms like Twitch that are playing new roles in the economy and in how we think about business. So, your talent, they tend to be creators, they're not employees. I'd love to see how, with your front row into sort of this aspect of the economy, how do you see this evolving, and the creator economy that you're hosting, how do you see that evolving?
Yeah. One of the things about the creator economy that I think is most interesting from the point of view of streamers is the degree to which being a creator is a career path independent of any one company. Almost every creator these days is on multiple bits of social media, right? They're on every service, and they may pick one that's their primary service, one place they are most likely to go to, but they're not. It's not like a traditional job where you would have an employer and that employer would choose the ratio of your usage. Instead, there's a bunch of different places you can spend your time, different ways you can connect with your audience, different ways you can monetize, so you can grow your audience. And you pick the balance. And so we're kind of always in competition with every other service, trying to win the time effectively of the creator, and convince them that we're the best place they should be spending their time. We offer the best combination of reach, of positive interaction with their community, of monetization. And that's a very different dynamic than a regular job.
So at so-called regular companies, we think a lot about culture, and we think that to develop and sustain a culture, you sort of need employees who are committed to you and committed to the long term, and you're skilling them up and mentoring them and giving them reasons to be there. Do you think about culture differently?
So actually, there's a question I asked an employee one time who asked me a question about culture. This has been many years ago. When we were first getting started 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And they asked me, what do you think our culture is? And I asked them, well, what do you mean by culture? And they gave me the best answer to that question, something that I've kept as my answer to the question ever since, which is, oh, well, your culture is the set of behaviors that you reward and the set of behaviors that you punish. If there's a set of behaviors that get you positive reinforcement, you'll get more of those behaviors in your company. And if there's a set of behaviors that you react negatively to, you'll get less of that. And over time, that is your culture, because culture is what we do, but people ultimately are, rewarded by what causes success and what avoids failure. And I would add a nuance to that actually. My addition to that is it's actually the set of behaviors that people perceive are punished or perceive are rewarded. Because if in fact you're rewarded for doing one thing, but everyone believes you're rewarded for doing something else, they follow what they think they're rewarded for, not what they actually are, and always. So there's occasionally a little gap opens up there. But so what's our responsibility as a service? Well, it's pretty different from a full-time employer, right? As a full-time employer, we get all of your time. We can dictate your working hours. We can dictate all kinds of things as an employer. For a streamer, they choose how many hours they do. They choose when they do it, and they choose like what content they want to do. We have very little control compared to the normal thing, and yet there's a certain set of things we can reward and a certain set of things that we can punish. And so our culture is the combination of what causes your stream to grow, what causes your monetization to go up, what causes you to get discovered on Twitch. How does our discovery work? We choose which streams go through the recommendation engine, and therefore, whatever we choose is the way that what tends to get promoted. That is the set of stuff that you'll tend to get more of. And then obviously, if you act out of line, if you say something racist or hateful, if you say something that is abusive towards other streamers, we'll punish that. And so those set of tools are sort of how we manage creating a culture for streamers. But actually, I would say that that's almost just the baseline, because really a lot of the culture from streamers comes from the other streamers. A lot of the reward people get is from other people saying, wow, that was cool. And so there's this whole second layer of culture that's been created by our streamers themselves. And that's sort of traditional for Twitch, actually. We might provide the baseline, but ultimately almost everything gets done by our streamers. And so I'd say that's really our culture varies a lot by game. This fighting game culture is very different from League of Legends culture.
So, all that sounds maybe somewhat unique to what you are, to a kind of a streaming platform. But do you think more traditional companies can learn from that? I mean, do you think there's a shift happening where not just in streaming, but creators have the power, or gig workers have the power, something like that we all need to reckon with?
Yeah, then actually, so I think bringing up gig workers is a really good place to look at, because I think gig workers are an incredible contrast to the creator economy. I don't know if there's a formal definition for both of them, but for me, the difference is the gig economy is commodified labor working for the API. So your job is reactive to the computerized dispatch from jobs, which is similar to working for a creator economy company like Twitch, but where creators are differentiated, uncommodified labor. People care which creator they connect to. You can't just substitute one creator for another. The consumers don't view it as the same. Gig economy labor is commodified. You don't really care who delivers the food or who gives you the ride, like which exact person it is. If you got one person instead of another, it's pretty much the same to you as a consumer, which is quite different from if someone who's a streamer or an artist or a writer. And so I think that are we going to see this kind of culture happen? I think so to have a culture, you need to have a sense of us as ourselves, right? People have to know how things are done here. In the creator economy, that tends to happen because all the creators talk to each other. They're all on every social media service, and therefore they're all talking to each other and they're all connected. In the gig economy, I don't see it as much in the same way because it's more atomized. And I don't know if you can meaningfully speak of a culture there without a sense of collective we and us. Now, you have that obviously for W-2 employees in most companies. You have that for people who are full-time employees because they have a sense of we and us. We all go to this place together. Although I do wonder in the future where people are working remotely, I think many jobs might feel less that way. It might feel a little bit more like a gig economy job, a little more isolated.
So I probably should have done this sooner, but I would assume that some of our viewers are like, okay, I love this. I love Twitch. This is really cool. And probably some people are, okay, this seems interesting. I'm not really sure what we're talking about here. So, if you're willing to just quickly, the sort of what is Twitch, how has it evolved, and while you're at it, where you think it's going, just to level set a little bit for people who aren't familiar.
So Twitch is a live video streaming community. We enable anyone to stream live, build an audience, interact with that audience via chat, and monetize. And obviously, we've been I don't know what obviously. We've been known most for our gaming content. So people streaming video games, much like someone might stream sports or cooking. But over the past few years, we've actually expanded quite a bit out of gaming. Our biggest category now is actually talk shows. And people just chatting, often about about finance or about politics or about just whatever catches their fancy, and that's been a big category. And I think as we go forward, what I'm really excited about is expanding the set of people who can stream, because streaming it's a very socially connected form of social media. Most social media is pretty isolated. Streaming you do with your audience. You don't do it just by yourself, and the audience does it with each other. And it's participatory in a way that VOD content isn't. And so video on demand content. Sorry, I probably shouldn't just use random acronyms. But yes, the like on demand video clips are a little bit more isolated intrinsically. Live video you get to do with people. It's interactive in that way, and that means that every stream has its own little culture. And I think where we're headed, we want to bring that to everyone.
And then to what extent do you police that? To what extent, literally can anybody stream, or, to what extent do you set rules, guardrails? You can do this, you can't do that.
Yeah, we have a pretty extensive set of community guidelines. We update them regularly. We have a pretty robust reporting and monitoring process around that, a combination of proactive and reactive tools. And generally, I think one of the interesting things is that content can't go viral very easily when it's live, because if there was some crazy viral moment, you were either there or you weren't, right? It's gone now. And so what tends to happen is on live, channels build up slowly over time. So you'll have someone who's a bigger streamer who has lots of people who watch them every day. But it's hard for something crazy to happen that goes really viral. And a lot of the worst content, a lot of the things you have to really watch out for are kind of viral content. And so that makes our job in some ways easier, where if you're a big streamer with a lot of reach who's going to impact a lot of people, you're going to be careful not to break the rules because you have a lot to lose. Whereas if a piece of content can go viral, people will push the limits more because if they get punished, well, whatever. Like, I'm not a big user of the service anyways. It doesn't really matter. I can just create a new account. And I think that that skin in the game for the people who have the reach is really important. Having a lot of reach, it took you a lot of time, a lot of effort to grow that reach. You do not want to lose it. And so I think that's a big part of our enforcement.
So our show, by the way, so we're streaming on LinkedIn, we're streaming on YouTube, and for the first time on Twitch. So hopefully developing a new audience with Twitch on that. So you mentioned that there are, there are talk shows, things like this. But yeah, what a lot of people think about when they think about Twitch is, gaming and, other things that you could view as sort of solitary entertainment, and yet people are watching, and that's a whole new, not new, but anyway, a whole different aspect of entertainment. But my question is, to what extent did that grow and expand during the pandemic, because of the pandemic, when we were, in lockdown part of the time, and maybe this entertainment was more appealing?
We find that Twitch grows a lot whenever people have spare time at home. So there's a big jolt of growth every Christmas break. Right after Christmas and New Year, there's this surge of growth. Then we find that you see the same thing around other holidays on occasion, although not quite as big as Christmas. The pandemic was sort of a giant holiday from that point of view. You had a bunch of people who are trapped home, needing time and needing connection. And so, we grew a lot during the pandemic. And we retained a good deal of that growth since. Not all of it. Some of those people have gone back to doing whatever they were doing before, hopefully going outside. But many people have kept using Twitch. I think that's actually points to one of our biggest challenges. Twitch is a lot of fun, but it's not that easy to learn. It takes some time and commitment to figure out how it works. And so we tend to grow when people have that time available.
So I'm going we asked our Instagram followers to contribute questions, and I'm going to sort of get to some of them. But one question is, Web 3.0, the metaverse. I mean, where do you see Twitch sort of fitting into those scenarios?
Let's take VR separately from crypto, because they get entangled together in this metaverse thing, but they're both pretty separate phenomena. And you could imagine either one of them being successful without the other. So crypto, we have yet to find the thing where Twitch engaging in crypto it creates a benefit for our streamers. Like, you can imagine a bunch of things we can go build. And every time someone pitches me on one, I ask them, why would the streamer want us to do it instead of going to a third party? Like, how do we add value above just using one of the existing tools? And nobody ever has an answer for me. And so I'm interested, but our job is to build stuff that will help our streamers. And so if there isn't any value for the streamer in us doing it, any extra value, why would we do it again? Like, what's the point? And so we're still looking there. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that we'll ever find a crypto thing. Maybe. When it comes to VR, VR is a social media platform at some level. VR is going to be eventually a place people spend a huge amount of time. And as more people spend more time there, I'm sure there will be opportunities to bring live interactive streaming communities into VR and out of VR. There aren't enough VR headsets yet. People don't spend enough time in VR. VR also kind of has a max of about maybe an hour or so before you run out of batteries at the moment on most headsets. And so Twitch is a long form viewing service. We're not a great match for VR today. That said, hardware is just getting better every year. And I'm very confident we will as that grows, we'll wind up doing stuff. And I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be really cool to just be in the video with the streamer. I think that's going to be a very neat experience.
Yeah. I want to ask a little bit about monetization. And, again, I think partly for people who are watching this, like, how do they monetize it? But then more interestingly, what have you learned about monetization? How have you kind of evolved your business model as you've seen what people actually do and what they like about the platform?
So monetization on Twitch is interesting because it needs to work for people who have 5 viewers and for people who have 50,000. And as you can imagine, the right set of tools for someone with 5 viewers is pretty different from someone with 50,000. As you get bigger, at the very large end, advertising, sponsorships, specific brand sponsorships, things like that become incredible tools because you are effectively a little mini media company in yourself with a 50,000 person audience. But with a 5-person audience, advertising kind of works. It's okay. It's not great. But direct support from your audience works a lot. And actually, we find that for those smaller streamers, cheering, which is our sort of like a gifting from the viewer to the streamer, works best at that sort of smaller end where people just love it and want to support it. And then in the middle, we have memberships. We have subscriptions, and people can subscribe for $5 a month. And the subscription isn't necessary to get the content. The content's free. The subscription is sort of like being part of being a card-carrying member of the community, right? You get a special badge. You get emotes in chat, little like emojis, and I think that works. That just empirically works best for the medium-sized, channels. Although all 3 work for everyone, but our job is to kind of fill in that whole range with tools. And because streaming requires you to spend many hours at it to be good at it, right? Like it's a long form thing, and you're bringing a community together. People can easily spend 20, 40 hours, and if someone wants to spend 20 or 40 hours a week on something, they better be making money, or else how are they going to support themselves doing it? And so monetization is a really crucial part of how Twitch works. It's one of the key things we do for streamers is allow them to monetize.
And if you have a successful streamer who has, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, are you saying that traditional economics, people like to lock in those people to a contract or a commitment? Are you not doing that? I mean, is that your point, that you will always let streamers have a choice?
So we do obviously sign some larger streamers to longer contracts, and that's at the high end that happens for sure. And we'll have negotiated contracts, and they have agents, and it's traditional media business. But that's not the direction. That's not generally how it works for most streamers, and that's not the direction we're really headed in. We really view it as basically something where the streamer's job is to run a career as a creator, and Twitch is one of many tools they use to do that. And so ultimately, while some people might sign up for with us for longer terms and commitments and things like that, we don't see that as the key essential point for how we interact with them, because ultimately they're not going to stay if the terms aren't great, right? Our goal is not to, live video evaporates too fast, right? If you're in music or movies, you could build a library of archived content and own that content and use that to be kind of to mean you don't need, you have a lot of leverage with the current content creators. For us, the content from yesterday doesn't matter anymore. We still need your active participation in work. And so I think we're much less focused on that kind of that kind of situation.
So a lot of the questions that we receive from our viewers, people want to know more about you personally, and like for example, what are your personal passions, particularly in the sort of the Twitch type world in terms of gaming or sports or entertainment? What are your passions?
Well, I love reading. I would say reading is my favorite activity. But video games have been a close second. As I've gotten older, I think I've shifted a little bit even more towards reading, but I still love both. Currently, I'm really into Hades. It's a great game made by a little indie studio, and really truly a work of art. I can't recommend it enough. But I have a pretty broad taste in video games. I've played a lot of different stuff over the years, and I still like trying new things.
Yeah. All right, that's good. I also want to ask you about your role at Y Combinator. That's just an interesting side gig. So, what is something, I don't know, that maybe every startup should know that they perhaps don't realize that you could share from that experience of yours?
Yeah. So I've been more or less involved in YC over time, and the part-time partner role shifted quite a bit. It used to be more hours, and now it's fewer. But I still end up spending a lot of time with startups and through YC regardless somehow. Okay, I'm going to plug my Twitter thread. I wrote a Twitter thread on this where I literally wrote down all of the pieces of startup advice that I think are important and that have sort of hit me over the years. I thought it was pretty good. It sort of has it covers a lot of ground. Just to pick one of them, I think one of my favorite pieces of advice to give startups when they ask me how do you hire a new head of sales, or how do you hire someone who does marketing or engineering, and it's always some job they haven't ever done because they're a salesperson and trying to hire a head of engineering, or they're an engineer trying to hire a head of sales. And the answer is just go do the job yourself. Go try for 6 months or a year. And when you've tried and struggled and failed and struggled some more and tried again, you will understand the challenges of that job. And when you go to hire someone, you will know what you are looking for. And it's extremely difficult to hire for something that you have no experience with, to the point where it's almost not worth doing. You shouldn't even try to hire for something like that unless you've tried it. It's one of the reasons why I love being a startup CEO is I've gotten to do over time almost every role in the company. And for someone who likes novelty and learning, that's an incredible gift. And I've gotten to / I've had to, but I view it as mostly a positive.
So really, just one more question for me, and so you've had a couple, at least a couple of successful startups, and you're in that world. Not everyone, gets it at the same pace, and some people are skeptical; they don't see it, but maybe they get there later. So I'd love your thoughts on, there's this idea sometimes that people have to get it and go, move fast, but that would leave a lot of people sort of out of the picture who will get there eventually, who will see what you're trying to do, who will understand the future possibilities of whatever it is, new technology, a new approach. So, what are your thoughts on how to bring the most people along when we don't, we're all sort of processing change in a different way?
In the beginning, if they don't get it, move on. In the beginning, you want to build something that 10 people think is amazing, even if 99.9% of people don't understand it and don't care about it. Those people are irrelevant, because someone who doesn't buy your product because they completely don't understand, and someone who doesn't buy your product because it makes sense, but I'm just not that into it, are the same from your point of view. No sale. They aren't a customer. And what you really care about is building something that it truly makes things great for other people. That's really amazing. And the weird paradox of startups is that if you make something that 10 people think is truly amazing, you have a better shot at something that everyone thinks is amazing than someone who builds something that 20 million people think is kind of okay. It turns out it's easier to grow the number of people who think something is great than it is to grow how great something is. Like a lot easier. And so ultimately, the answer is the people will catch up at their own pace, and that's fine. Don't worry too much about that. Focus on the thing that you can control. Focus on making the thing you're building as amazing as possible.
That's a great answer. So Emmett Shear, I want to thank you very much for being my guest on The New World of Work.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so that was Emmett Shear, the CEO of Twitch, and this brings us to the end of the season. So we've had an amazing season. We started with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and ended with Emmett Shear, the CEO of Twitch. Had a lot of really interesting conversations in between. Thank you, everybody who has been with us for this journey. We're going to take a break for a while, but we'll be back in the fall with this, or maybe a version of this. We'll do some thinking about it. And if you like this content, sign up. If you're a subscriber, sign up for our newsletter, hbr.org/newsletters. And again, thank you for watching with us. We will join you again in a few months. And this is The New World of Work.